Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we will be talking about Serba yet again, electric vehicles in Malacca, and Bitcoin. Now, before we begin, as usual, none of what we're going to talk about here should constitute financial advice. If you really need financial or investment advice, please speak to a professional.
Hey guys, we'll be having our fourth episode for Project Small, where we'll be covering three companies, TaxCam, TaxCycle, and Surya. It will be happening on the 20th of January, and the early bird ends on the 17th. So make sure you sign up now to claim the early bird discount, link in the description and comments. Okay, so MJ, the topic of the week, Serba Dynamic.
We're back.
Yes, so recently Serba actually had slipped into PN17. It's pretty unfortunate. But actually, this is not the first time that it triggered the PN17 status. Actually, it happened on the 9th of December 2021 last year. But because there is this aid, which is called the COVID-8, it actually removed this PN17 status and give them give them more time to regulate themselves and to improve whatever stuff that they need to do. But unfortunately, recently, on the 6th of January, they actually triggered PN17. And why is that? It's because there's a criteria to have this PN17 to get triggered. So these are the six criteria on how a company will get PN17. So the very first thing is if your shareholders fund is less than 25% of the total paid capital, and then you can just read up the rest. But I'll just point out which point actually resulted Serba to actually have this PN17. So the very first one is actually the auditor actually have expressed adverse opinion on Serba Dynamic itself. But actually this did not really happen the first time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the very first time we have KPMG, they actually...
Many.
Yeah,
many. I think we have like 5 videos on them.
Yeah.
So for those who are listening, you can go watch that and then you can understand this a little bit better.
Yeah, so interestingly, the first auditor we have is KPMG, who actually discovered this uncertain accounting for Serbadk Dynamics financial statements. And then we have EY. And then the latest appointment, which is next year, they also find something fishy about their accounting. And here's the reason why actually they actually expressed an adverse opinion on Serbadk Dynamic. So the very first point that Nexia actually pointed out is that they did not really obtain sufficient audit evidence in terms of their receivables, payables, and inventories. I think they did mention that it's due to time constraint, which is also one of the reasons why they didn't really get much of this information from them. And then the second point is pretty interesting, is that there's actually a 10% deviation between the unaudited and audited results. So if I remember correctly, in their unaudited result, they actually Serbadk claim that they made about 180 million profit. But when it's come to their audited result, they actually make a loss.
That is more than 10%, right?
Yeah, it's more than that. So I'm not sure. But Serbadk actually did clarify that the reason why they are making loss is because their receivable just ballooned. In a way, and then everything is there's a lot of expenses that they need to bear during that short period of time, which resulted the 10% deviation, more than 10% deviation. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts about this Serbadk going into PN17?
So, what's interesting? I'm not an expert on this. Is there's 6 criteria, but only one criteria is enough to trigger the PN17.
Any one of the 6.
Yeah. So that's interesting because if that's the case, I think many companies may actually face something similar as well, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is to be expected, right? I mean, of course, PN17 is kind of a boogie word, right? In Malaysian stock investing speak. But yeah, I think this is just the final chapters of this very, very, very long saga, you know. And
finally, we have a conclusion.
Finally, we have a conclusion. This would be a very short discussion on Serba because I think the big amount of discussion that our thoughts have already been shared in a lot of our previous videos, right?
Yeah.
which you guys can check out.
Yeah.
So if you ask
Yeah.
me, do I have thoughts? I think this is it's just an ending.
All right.
conclusion.
Actually, there's actually one more stuff, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure whether should I include this into the list of criteria.
Yeah. Sure, why not?
So let me just show you. There's actually one more criteria, which is that the default in loan interest and principal repayment. But in Serbadk's case, they don't really have any. I mean, they claim that they didn't really have any issue in repaying their loans and whatnot, but they actually have problem with paying the bond coupon. So I'm not sure whether this is one of the criteria that actually triggered, because they actually owe a lot of people money lah. Those
If I had to guess, it's number 4 lah.
Oh, number 4, and the auditors express this.
That trigger, and they're kind of linked, right? Because the reason the auditor has the adverse opinion is because of the working capital problems.
Yeah.
So by extension, if you have big working capital problems, then paying off your creditors is going to be a challenge. So they're kind of linked. So
Right.
usually, if 4 is a problem, 5 is just a natural extension, assuming they have bonds and loans, of course.
Okay.
Because you can't, in a way, you can't go bankrupt if you don't have bonds. If you know what I mean? You don't borrow money, you can go bankrupt, right?
Yep, makes sense. Okay, besides their PN17 status, right? Actually, one of the points that I actually managed to discover is their shareholders. So if you look at their recent annual report that actually is released like 2 days ago, yeah, you can see that the analysis of shareholdings, there's actually a huge change in the position of all of these institution investors. So if you notice, right, number 1, you can see that Awang Daud, which is one of the directors of Serbadk Dynamic, he actually reduced his position from 294 shares to as low as 9 million shares. I think one of the reasons why there's a drop is because of the margin call. That's one. But another interesting fact is that you can see that EPF, KWAP, Amanah Saham, and all these institution investors, they actually start to pull out their positions away from Serbadk Dynamic. But the big question is, where do you think who is buying all of these shares?
I don't know, aliens. But yeah, look, I think the answer is clear, right? It's the retailers.
Yeah.
Right. And it's always the case that I was just having a chat with a friend, a rich friend yesterday, and the same thing, he bought Serbadk, right? Bought the warrants as well, you know. Wow. So I think a lot of the mindset of retailers and why that they have been buying a lot of this is because they think that, hey, you know, yes, dropped by X percentage, how much more can it drop by?
Yeah.
I think that's the mindset of a lot of retailers. But as we can see, that is not necessarily a good investing strategy.
Yeah, definitely. But do you think that, you know, Bursa or maybe even Serbadk should continue let their shares to be traded during this open market?
I don't know, actually. I don't know. But I also think that the story, it all depends on how they manage their, not just their receivable, also their loans, right? Because if they manage to secure some sort of funding to sustain it, then they're going to be floating, I would say, right? So I have no views. Personally, I would just allow it. I would just allow it to trade until it goes bankrupt. That's how I would do it. But of course, I think there's enough information out there, and certainly we've contributed part to it, is, you know, what kind of information do you need as an investor to make these decisions? And, you know, you cannot expect like the government to like protect you all the time.
Yeah, correct.
So, yeah, that's my view.
Okay. If you need another opinion on your stock analysis, you can actually email your research to us. However, it must be in a Google Doc or Google Sheet format. And please don't only send us the financials of the company. Please do share with us about the business qualitative, what are the drivers moving forward, and your valuation towards the company.
Okay, Jonathan. So next. So one of the interesting thing about stock investing is that we rarely receive news out from Malacca.
Yeah.
Somehow it's always Penang, KL, occasionally Johor, Sarawak, but
or maybe even Kedah.
Yeah, but, or Perak with all of that. But Malacca is quite seldom. So recently, what seems on the surface to be pretty good news is that FIRL EV is investing 1 billion in Malacca to build their assembly plant, which is for electric cars.
Yes.
So now what's interesting as well is that they're going to give exclusive rights to this company, exclusive rights to distribute to this company called Chang'an Automobile, and it'll be the first
Yeah.
in
Actually,
Malaysia.
have you seen Chang'an Automobile around in Malaysia before? Chang'an Cars.
I have no idea. I would think it's a Chinese company. If you
Yeah,
did
yeah.
that.
It is a China company. But actually, I haven't really seen this kind of cars roaming around in the streets of Malaysia, lah. But one of the fun fact that when I was looking at this news is that I went and researched about FIRL EV. And I actually discovered that they are actually not a EV company.
Huh.
Yeah, so they are a conglomerate business where they manufacture jerry cans.
Ooh.
They also manufacture palm oil. They also do health equipment and all of those mumbo jumbo kind of business diversification. And EV is just happen to be one of their business segment.
And they're based in where?
FIRL EV. There's one in Malaysia. One of the subsidiaries in Malaysia. Yeah, but I haven't really studied like
Sure.
which is where does the origin company came from. But it's really interesting to know that, hey, at first my initial thought was the EV company is setting up an assembly plant here. Yes, maybe there's like some opportunity. But then when I read about the company, it's like, oh, it is just a conglomerate business who is interested in investing money.
They're not as serious lah.
Yeah, correct.
Potentially, they're not as serious.
If it's Tesla investing here, that would be a major news.
Or even like the other, like some of the Chinese EV companies or companies that are a little bit more focused. There's something you have have preferred more, is it?
Yes, most definitely. Like Neo China, for instance,
But one thing also is that I think we can discuss is what is EV going to be like for Malaysia, right? As in some of the pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely. In my opinion, my personal opinion, I don't think that Malaysia is really that ready for EV. One thing is because of the cost structure to like build all the power station to build, because you are essentially replacing petrol station with new technology, which is that power station, and you also need more people to adopt the consumers to actually buy the electric vehicle in Malaysia, which I'm not sure. For the time being, I don't see it happening very soon, but maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, as cost starts to drive down, most likely, then we'll see the adoption rate for EV will increase in Malaysia. Yeah.
Yep. I know in your next slide, one of the potential problems on the next one is actually a floods, right? And funny enough, it actually happened
recently
in Malacca.
Yeah. And actually, it happens like, I think it's 1 week or 2 weeks ago. This actually happened. Yeah, so I'm not sure whether FIRL actually, when they decide to expand to Malacca, they actually know about this news. But hopefully, they actually prepared to face this kind of situation, or maybe the area that they are actually expanding have maybe a high ground or something.
I wonder if there's like waterproof electric vehicles, right?
Yeah, actually, I got this kind of like a thought, because it's EV electric vehicle car, right? I was thinking that if you are submerged in water, will it like generate electricity and around the water?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I think your imagination is running a bit wild, but yeah, it's potential. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think, look, we should accept any electric vehicles. What I hope is that they build up a plant, and then that attracts other electric vehicle companies to congregate in Malacca. Because I think in Penang, they're very much specialized in
semicon
and all that.
Yeah.
So perhaps Malacca can be a hub, right, for electric vehicles. And we do have a pretty solid, I wouldn't say it's world class, but we do have a solid car, let's call it a car supply parts ecosystem, right? Primarily driven by Proton, right?
Yep.
Because of that, then you have your chassis, your tires, your components within the car and all that, plastic injection molding for car components. That's going to be really important for electric vehicles as well. And so I think we are I'm not the expert, but I think that we are more ready than perhaps some other countries
Yep.
in terms of infrastructure ecosystem to build a car. But that's that part of the ecosystem. But the other part of the ecosystem, which is what you alluded to earlier, which is the power station,
Power station,
that is
yeah.
going to be a separate
yeah.
separate story. I do think the sensible move is to start small and preferably somewhere in KL.
Yeah.
Right? Because we do see charging stations in KL already here and there. So if and this will involve many things. Key among them is the government to actually build some of these designated areas for electric charging and become more widespread. Then I think electric vehicles will become way more prominent. But we have to start on a city basis rather than the state or country.
Most definitely. Yeah. If you love to watch more of this kind of content, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Also, feel free to share this video out to your friends or family who love to know more about Serbadk Dynamic, Bitcoin, or maybe even electric vehicles. And make sure you hit the notification bell so that you know when new videos are out. So MJ, Bitcoin to 100,000 target price. Okay, so the reason why Goldman Sachs is so bullish on Bitcoin is because they think that it's going to steal market share from gold, and of course, it is a better store of value than other currency or maybe even other asset classes. But what do you think on this?
Well, first of all, 100K, although it's a big number, right? You have to realize Bitcoin's at now, what, 40 something?
Yeah, 47.
Right? And that's just a double.
Yep.
So it's not exactly, it is bullish, obviously, but it's not, very big bullish, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand the part about stealing market share from gold. I think what you said was that the investors will shift from gold
to.
So I actually think that a small percentage will shift, but I think the bulk of people owning gold are central banks.
Yep.
And very, very old investors. So people in their, retirees, right? So I don't think these people are going to be selling their gold for Bitcoin, right? People buying Bitcoin will be, younger people and things like that. And people who don't believe in gold already.
Yes.
So not much market share will be stolen. And actually, of course, they say it's a store of value, but, 50%, actually it's lower now, I believe, Bitcoin. It is less than 50% of the entire crypto market cap. It has been shrinking for quite a while. And by the way, guys, if you want to learn more about crypto, if you've heard of words like DeFi, NFTs, and things like that, head over to our new channel, which is here. Is it here? I can't remember. Yeah, head over to our new channel and check out some of our content there as well.
Oh, and another point that I want to show is that the analysis, whether they are bullish or bearish on Bitcoin in 2018 and compared to 2021. So you can see from the slides, right? There's a very few analysis institution investors who are actually bullish on Bitcoin. So you can see that in 2018, Goldman Sachs is already quite they are quite positive on Bitcoin already since way back 3 years ago, and now even more after the recent rally on Bitcoin. And you can see that those who are bear, there's actually a lot. And then if you can see the very bottom row, you notice Warren Buffett is one of them.
Correct.
Yeah, he did mention that Bitcoin has a zero intrinsic value, right? Which is why he doesn't really like Bitcoin. But if you compare it to 2021, you can see that there's quite a few analysts actually changed their view from being bearish to bullish after the rally of Bitcoin, or once they see that there's more and more people are actually thinking that, hey, maybe they are really the future, or maybe there's a better adoption for digital asset in our current life.
Of course, Buffett's still there, right?
And of course you can see that Buffett is still holding his own thesis. He doesn't really like Bitcoin at all. But then I think his view on blockchain, I think he's okay with it, right?
I think that is the standard response to buy a lot of these typically over investors, even someone like Bill Gates, right, who's in tech and all that.
Correct.
But he said that, basically, if I can summarize the view, Bitcoin bad, blockchain good.
Yeah.
The problem is that the blockchain is just it's just an architecture, right, for an accounting system, the ledgers and all that. And the value of a blockchain, it's like saying, how do I put it, right? this may not be the perfect analogy, but it's like saying company X bad, right? Let's say Nestle bad, but accounting good. You know what I mean? Like the reason the accounts in Nestle make sense and is valuable is because of Nestle. What is happening on Nestle? The accounting books are just recording the inner workings and making sure that the data is what we call immutable, meaning to say that you can't cheat and take away the data, right?
Right.
Accounting is there to track Nestle's transactions and the happenings in the same way that the blockchain is there to track the activities of the token. So that means when someone says blockchain good, crypto bad, or blockchain group, Bitcoin bad or Ethereum bad, they don't understand that the language they're using is really not, it's malformed, it's not well constructed, because they are one and the same thing. The value of a blockchain depends on the activity that the token is allowing the users to participate in whatever. So that I think is something, and of course we go a lot more depth into this when we in our new channel. If you can check it out. But that's my overall. So but of course blockchain, you see like even when people who say blockchain good, Bitcoin bad, and all that, what they actually say, ironically, all they have to do is listen to themselves, because then you ask them, right? Well, what is blockchain good for? Right? What? So blockchain is good for what? Because you say it's good, right? Oh, then they'll say, well, it's to manage supply chain.
Right.
Right. It is to
basically eliminate middlemen.
Eliminate middlemen. I agree.
Yeah.
But eliminating middlemen is only one half of the equation, right? Why is it that that blockchain is useful for supply chains? Because you want to track what's happening in the supply chain. How are things moving around?
Yep.
And so the blockchain is just there to give you, at the end of the day, we're investors, right? We look at accounting to help us find good investment decision. The same way we look at blockchain to find good tokens. That's it. It's just an accounting system that is more solid, less humans involved. That's it.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Nice. Okay, so we got a question from our Instagram story by Henry Prawn. So he asks, why institutional funds and EPF did not find Serbadk fishy accounts before it exploded? So what's your take on this, MJ?
Before I begin, I just have to ask Henry, right? Like, how do you come up with that name? And maybe if I had to guess, I don't know whether he's Chinese, but if he is Chinese, right, maybe he's he calls his surname is Ha, so it's Henry Ha, But yeah, jokes aside, yeah. So I think one of the things, one assumption I believe behind this question is that institutional funds and EPF, is able to foresee what happened with Serbadk, and B, have necessarily your best interest at heart, right? Right. The first thing to recognize is that when it comes to especially an institution, we tend to think of them as someone who has the ability, because they have all the brain, so-called, working under them to foresee these sort of things. Unfortunately, you know what an institution is? If you think about it, it's just a collection of retailers.
Actually, now that you mentioned it, yep.
It's really just a collection of retailers, right? So this idea, again, of institution versus retail, I don't think is a useful distinction, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings and subject to not just errors in analysis, but also bias. And I believe part of the reason why institutions didn't foresee a lot of this, and they were actually giving very good price targets for Serbadk, is because everybody was following each other's report.
Yeah.
Because if you're an institution, let's say you are a bank, right? Let's say you're a public bank, and then you write a report that is negative on Serbadk. Let's say you do your analysis properly, right? Let's say you're a good analyst, and then you give your boss, okay, boss, I think that the cash flow is bad, the receivables is bad, and all that. Things that we've talked about. They say, boss, can we publish this report, right? So then the boss is going to look at that. Then he's going to look at what Maybank analyst says, what HSBC analyst says, what CIMB and all these other banks say about Serbadk, and they're all saying positive stuff. So then they'll go back and listen. So what like you're saying, what those other guys who are also as smart as you, are smarter than you, are saying that, you know, Serbadk is going to be really good and all that, and you're telling me that this is bad, and they're taking a risk of their careers by, you know, a big risk by putting out something that is contradicting of the public.
So they're actually like following the herd. They're just following what everyone say. If it's good,
yes,
yeah,
and that is why institutions are just a collection of retailers. That's really what it is. They may not like to hear this, but I do think that is the case. The thing about the fishy accounts is I think they probably don't have one thing that may contribute as well is they don't have a proper framework, meaning to say that they don't look at the cash flows. I've seen so many analyst reports, they don't even bother looking at the cash flows.
I think if you look at the news that Serbadk actually announces, right, they go like ham with their contract, like the order book value. So you see when their order book value is like such a large amount, right? Like when it's more than their market cap. So for instance, previously Serbadk's market cap was around, I believe it was around 3 billion before it dropped down to I don't know how many million. Their actually contract value was around 15 billion, which is like 4 or 5 times more than their market cap. So I think that's why where they see that there's such a huge disparity between these two numbers. Maybe what if they actually manage to convert all of this contract into cash? I think that it's one of their one of the thoughts that they actually think that Serbadk is going to make a lot of money, in a sense. But in reality, it didn't really translate into cash.
Because it's just pure stories.
Yes, correct.
And of course, they didn't think hard about the story.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the transition from just basic oil and gas maintenance to EPCC.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Even actually something as simple as, if you don't need to look at the business, the financials of Serbadk Dynamic, if you have a look at their annual report, and I need to thank this to one of the StockBeats sharer who actually shared this. If you have a look at their annual report, right, when you try to download their annual report, do you notice anything different as compared to other companies' annual report? One thing that I actually realized that is that their annual report is very hard to read. It's very blurry and everything. It's like their work is they just scan through the whole file and then they just publish it like that. But if you have a look at other companies' annual report, right, it's actually very clear and very smooth. Yeah, I'm not sure whether this is one of the should be red flags for retailers. If you discover something, these tiny bits of information, when you see that, something is wrong with this company. And Serbadk is a company that is going to venture into space. And if they cannot even do small things like having a very clear annual report, everything we can read it is like crystal clear, and they do something like publishing a very blurry annual report, I think it's a sign, man. It's a sign.
I think I remember there was the megabyte was a lot smaller, right?
Yeah, a lot smaller
compared to the bigger, the better companies.
Yeah,
by like half, right? I remember.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. And remember, if you like this kind of content, you can also check us out at some of our other social media channels like Instagram and TikTok. We have a Telegram group chat as well. And of course, if you enjoy the video, please share it with your friends, like, comment, subscribe, and all of that. And see you in the next video.